Welcome to another Hustle to Wealthy episode. Today we are diving into the wealth pyramid and talking about wholesale assets with my co-star Mark Robinson. Hi, Mark.
Hey, how are we? And
Good, thank you.
is my brand new barbecue that's turning up shortly? Is that a wholesale asset? I think
No.
so.
I have news for you. That asset is not making you money unless you are barbecuing for wealthy people and wheeling and dealing, doing, negotiating deals around that barbecue.
Wow, there you go. Tax write-off right there. Tax advice. That's what I heard. Not
There's
tax.
never advice in this, only our personal opinion. But let's talk about wholesale assets. So for anyone who's listening in, this is the second layer of our pyramid, as you'll see on the screen. And it is right still at the bottom of the pyramid, the second to last, or the second to the
It's the next
first
layer,
of
yeah.
assets you should collect,
Yeah.
right? To make sure that your wealth pyramid stands the test of time. So Mark, let's define a little bit what is a wholesale asset.
Yeah, look, our definition of a wholesale asset is buying a quality asset at a discounted price, right? Or you buying, another term is to buy it below fair market value, right? And the cool thing about the wholesale asset class is you can also create equity or create value out of thin air, right? And what I mean by that, it's predominantly in the property space, but you can buy property for 500 grand, you spend $100,000 on it, doing a renovation or a rehab on it. So you've spent 600 grand and then you get it revalued at maybe 700, 800 or more, right? And it's that equity, that value that you've added to it, forced into there, right, is what we call the wholesale asset part. So it's a good way and the other cool thing, right? You can do it in other areas, but this is the best one. If you have no capital, right, this is the asset class that I would focus on. And we'll talk more about this later. But this is the asset class that I would focus on because you can use otherwise, or utilize is a better way to say it, other people's money to create equity or capital growth out of thin air, right? So when you're going into a wholesale asset, your goal is to potentially own the asset for anywhere from, we say 1 to 3 years, but with the property side of things, and you go into that space doing renovations and what have you, you probably want to be more like no more than 3 months, right? To woe to go, but I'll get Paulina to talk more about that shortly, right? So it's a little bit more of a lesser time frame. And then your targeted return in this space is anywhere sort of from 12 to 50%, right? But it could also be infinite if you are using other people's money, right? And again, we're going to talk about that shortly. So the types of opportunities, right, or assets that you can do, strategies, is that renovations, or you can do what they call duplexes, right, where you build two properties on the one and you strata title it, so you've got two assets. That's another good way to create value. Splitter blocks, commercial properties, it's to some
Subdivisions.
degree. And more importantly, guys, buying the dip. Excuse me. Now, what I mean by that is, when, again, recently, right, we had a nice little correction in the crypto market, and it went from 70 grand down to 50 grand in quite a short period of time.
We're talking about Bitcoin, right?
Yeah, Bitcoin. Yeah, that was the main one. The others, some of them did even, more than that. But in Bitcoin, it went from here to here. So even though in the other session, guys, we spoke about foundational assets and we had Bitcoin in there, we're holding it forever. Now, for the first time ever, I actually sold all my Bitcoin, right? And I actually, because I just had this feeling. Now, I didn't sell it at 70 grand. I think I sold it at about 60, right? I'd have to get that exact. But then it dropped as far as 50, and I think it actually went down to 49, and I bought back in at about 51, right? And now I think today we're at 61,000 or something. So all of a sudden I've collected more Bitcoin. So I actually, and like I said to you, when you're buying a foundational asset, you're going to keep it forever. But I just had this inkling that I call it a lazy trade. And I took the gamble, and it was a gamble, guys, or calculated risk more than anything. I sold absolutely everything here and I bought back here, and now it's back here, right? So I've just collected more foundational assets by using a wholesale asset strategy. Yeah, and I hope you get the difference between the two. So I bought the dip, but I actually bought it hard. Okay, so it was a calculated risk, but I just knew it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you're like, interesting, like we talk about property and I'll dive into property a little bit more shortly, but like other things that you could do, like if you're thinking about outside the square and like literally not having any money or money that using other people's money. Recently, over the last couple of years, I've seen a lot of retrofitted vans. You know, you buy a van at 10 grand, you retrofit it into like something that people can travel in and you sell, you know, you put the fittings in and then you sell it for 2-3 times as much because it is already done. So this works not just on property, that works on other assets as well. So really the world is your oyster, the creativity is your oyster, right? Like going what's your skill set. And I think that's the key thing in wholesale assets is if you're not buying in a dip, but like doing into something like greenhouse, what's your skill set and how can you add more value to something that already exists and then sell it for more.
And it's the, like I said, there are definitely other asset classes that you can do this, right. But if you've got, plenty of money but no time, or if you've got plenty of time but no money, or you've got all this knowledge but no time or money, or you've got this knowledge, there's beautiful partnerships, joint ventures, JVs as we call them, and this is the space that you can create value and create a lot of capital a lot faster than the other asset classes. Yeah. And we're going to do sessions on all of the asset classes, but this is the one that is really exciting. So if you said to me, "Hey, Mark, I've got all this time but no money, right? Where do I start in the wealth pyramid?" Boom, this one right here, all right? Because you'll use all your time to get educated, you'll do whatever you can, and then you'll start to go and find opportunities where you can create a win-win-win. And that's the real key in this space, is to make that happen. And the cool thing about it, right, is Pauline and Tyrell have really started their journey in this asset class, right? Going and getting educated with the right people, looking for deals, and they started it at the right time, right? Just before, about 3-4 months before ski season, because,
We were busy.
yeah. I mean, in ski season, you're busy, right?
100%. But that's like part of it because you at the time you were like, can you wait 3 months, and we'll do it together. And I'm like, no, because in 3 months time I'll be skiing. I'll be
Yeah.
busy doing other things. But funny you say this because we have a deal right now that we are going into the due diligence process with, right? So we have a property under contract. 20 days due diligence period to do some research on it to decide if this is the right deal for me or not. And honestly, for the last, I think we're in day 8 of due diligence, and it's been such a fun roller coaster because we got the contract and we were like, this deal doesn't stick up. But hey, let's just go through it anyway. And then next day, so we got like the builders in and the building inspection, right? And when they came back to us and they said, oh yeah, there's like $150,000 more in the renovation than you were planning. And I'm like, cool, now we have a deal because I've got something to negotiate with, right? Like
Yeah.
if the building report tells you that you need more, you can go back to the vendor and have a conversation and negotiate. These are all the things we didn't anticipate. Can you drop the price? Now you can, that's where the value lies, right? Really being able to negotiate that deal. But then, so the next day we were like, okay, it doesn't look like we can make it work. And then we rang our mentor rang us and he was like, hey, we've got a new a student. They are in the area you are in and they are a builder. Their parents are builders, their brother is a builder, and they're looking for a joint venture partner. And now I'm going, oh, cool. I can make the deal work again, right? And it's like, it's been this roller coaster up and down. It's like every day, one day I wake up and I go, no, I can't make a deal work. The next day I go, oh, it could work. And it's been going backwards and forwards. So we are catching up in a couple of days to see if we can actually make this deal work for anyone, right? But interestingly enough, some of these property deals, like you really want to have a look for in that, like adding value, right? Like, do you add value by subdividing? Do you add value by putting another bedroom in, another bathroom in? Are you just adding value by just putting a cosmetic reno and then flicking it? And all these different strategies have different time frames. Straightforward cosmetic
Yeah.
reno, you want to be out in like 4 months. If you are adding as soon as you're adding something where you need consent, you're adding another 2 months to it. So it's 6 months, right? As soon as you want to subdivide, you would go from 6 months to 12 months, or just on the subdivision. If you want to build on the second piece of land, you're going to 2 years. So your time frames are about right. Anything between, I would say, 3 months and the 4 year period in the property space for that asset class.
Yeah, and I actually, when we update our wealth pyramid, because we always do, we always look how to improve it, because there's always different asset classes. We'll move that sort of 3 months to 3 years, because I just think that's sort of where it fits a lot more. And even though I mentioned commercial property, guys, to me, even commercial property probably fits more up the pyramid, and I've left it there because a lot of people, when they have a look at the wealth pyramid, they think the higher up the pyramid, the riskier it is, and it's not the case at all, right? And in reality, when we talk about wholesale cash flow, it's about getting above market returns, right? And commercial properties generally will sit up there, because you would expect a double digit, right? 10% plus per year. For me, is where you aim for commercial. And it was interesting, right? We had one of our members came in and said, "Oh, I've got this really good commercial. It's paying 7 or 8%." And I've just instantly gone, "Man, commercial is not a 7 or 8% return investment. It's 10% to 12% plus." So it was really interesting. And then the conversation back was, "Oh, it's a really good tenant and it's long term." And I'm going, "It's still a crap return for commercial, right?" And the reason why I say that is because everybody needs somewhere to live, but not everybody needs somewhere to business, right?
And meaning that they have a long-term tenant doesn't mean anything,
Doesn't
because
mean
if you're heading into a recession or
right.
something happens to the owner or whatever, like, yes, they might have signed a 10-year, 20-year lease, but that doesn't mean they're going to be there. And then you do what? Like I've got friends who have commercial properties as well, who like 3-4 years down the track, they're still empty.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
you really, how many office blocks, like think about that, like how many office blocks or retail stores right now are suffering
Yeah.
because they are empty and they can't fill them.
If I had $200 million and I was going to buy a 20, 30 sort of story office block, guys, I would be converting them into farms. I know that sounds weird, right?
Farms, what kind of
Yeah,
farm?
absolutely. Yeah, indoor growing. I look at that and honestly think that an office block that's 20 stories high, you could have 1 story's tomatoes, the next one's cucumbers, lettuce, frickin' alfalfa. I won't put any peas, mate, because I don't want to,
Thanks.
want to make
Don't
sure.
want to kill me.
No, I don't want to kill you. I want you to run the damn thing, right?
I'm looking forward to running that. Cool.
But pretty cool, right? And it was, when the whole, everyone got to work at home for a couple of years, and I went, man, there's all these office spaces. What would I do with it? I would plumb them, and I would literally just convert them into food sources, right? And that's what I would do with a couple $100 million. I'd kick every tenant out, and I would provide some incredible food for inner city. Yeah.
Can we have some sort of natural duct system that we can like send the bees from the top to the bottom
Yeah.
to pollinate the whole thing, and then we collect
100%.
our own honey too?
Yeah, without a doubt, right? We'd chuck them up on the roof and make it work. And that's, I mean, that's just, again, that would, to me, would end up being like a wholesale asset, right? We would make that. And I truly believe that that would turn that office block from $100 million to a $300 million plus asset, because I actually think that we could produce more food than a 10,000 acre sort of farm. And this is just weird ass ideas that I get, when I'm sitting on a plane for bloody 20 hours at a time. Yeah.
I like it. I like it. It's like, I love how you're like, oh, this is how we're going to create food. I was like, well, we have to find land for, well, we've just decided to have a beehive, right? And we wanted 500 bee homes. So I was like, if you had these buildings, you could put like 10 or 20 of beehives on top of the roof of the
Yep.
buildings. And then now we're creating space for them too.
Yep.
We're going to save the planet. One day in this one podcast, we're going to save the planet, I swear.
Oh,
But
it's a simple process, right? And the key is to look at our current infrastructure and go, how can we make it better? And like that literally is like a wholesale asset. How do we provide? We're buying a quality asset at a discounted price, or we're buying below market value. But the other part to it, guys, is we're forcing or adding value, right? We're adding value to an asset, right? And then we are looking to on sell it, right, over that 1 to 3 years. But if you created an asset that you then turn around and go, you know what, I want to keep that, then all we do, guys, is we bring it from a wholesale asset down into your foundational asset. Yeah, that would be if I take the office block and I turn it into a $300 million farm, say it cost me 150 million all up. By the time I bought it for 100 million, put 50 million into it, and then it was worth 300, right? I could sell that, right? But if it was producing incredible cash flow and most likely going to create cash flow forever, right? I would literally take that whole, even though it's worth 300 million, I would move it down to the foundational asset. Don't get me wrong, guys. I would probably rip out another 50 million in equity, right? So I can go and buy another couple of these like these office buildings. Yeah, I'm not going to let $150 million worth of equity just sit on the foundational assets forever. So I know those sound like big numbers, right? But you just take a couple of zeros off it, right? And you can talk about other asset classes where you're buying it for 1.5 million or 100, 500,000
150,000.
and whatever is wherever your mindset is, right? You can sort of tell where mine is at the moment. I am looking at going to that next level and talking about $100 million properties and what have you. So it's the same with you guys. And I started buying, my first asset was 77 grand, right? And we all we did was paint it and put a little tiny breakfast bar in. It got valued at 85. We ripped the equity out and we went and bought our house for 132,000. Right? Same
Nice.
principles apply wherever you are in your journey. Please understand that, right?
I also want to add in this particular asset class, as you talked about time, money, and knowledge, right? So there's three things like to make a wholesale asset deal work for you is you need to have two out of the three. You need to have so the three are time to do something, money to pay with or invest with, and then knowledge, right? The skill set to do it. You only need two out of the three. So if you have time and knowledge, but you've got no cash, cash finds a really good deal. Like if the deal is attractive enough, like I said, like I had three people in this one particular deal. I have three people knocking on the door going, can I buy it off you? And I'm like, what's in this deal, right? Like, but like that's literally people come and going, okay, you have the deal. If you can't find a deal, it just means you need to expand your network. Are you hanging out with the right people who have the money to do something like that, right? If you have money and time and not the skill sets, well, then go and get educated, right? Find someone, a community, a coach, or someone who's going to help you in that space. If you've got time and
Or find someone who has the skill set and JV with them, right?
yeah, exactly. Absolutely. So there is just so many different ways to do this. If you've got just two out of the three aspects to a deal, that's all you need in explanation marks to make a good deal work is two out of the three. So it's really key to remember when you're looking in that asset class.
Without a doubt, man. I
All
think
right.
that's I think we are going to talk more about due diligence in other sessions, but let's do what we did at in the foundational one. Give them some. This is your jam, right? DD. Where do they start their DD, their due diligence in wholesale assets?
What if I turn around and say I don't want to?
Well,
Like you did on the last one. So first of all, everyone, when Mark talks about the episode foundational assets, or talks about foundational assets, there is a episode on foundational assets. So go and tune in. Absolutely. Due diligence, where to start is like, I think the biggest thing is to spot the opportunity. So you want to do research around the asset classes where there is opportunities. It would be number one, right? I mean, property is one thing that I talked about, but there's so many other asset classes where you could put value to it. Like we talked about the retrofitted cars, or even like going from one market to another. Like I have lots of friends who buy a car, drive it, like spend 2 weeks driving across the country, having a holiday, and then they sell it for twice as much, right? Because the market is in a different place. So I think the biggest thing you want to look at is where do you find the opportunity to add value? So that's your number one question you want to ask, right? You obviously want to look into if you're in that asset class, but before you even go there, you want to go and talk about like what's this asset class or what's the asset you're investing in going to do for your portfolio, right? Like, is it going to give you more capital? Is it providing you with cash flow? What am I actually wanting out of my portfolio, and how is this going to help me build the end game that I'm looking for, right? So that you want to be clear, because then it shows you, am I going into something like cars that might be 5 or 10K worth, or am I going into something like property where you're talking from 500,000 to 100 million, right? So now then when you look and assess which one of the three do you have, time, money, or skills, right? And partner or find the missing link. That's the key thing that I would do in any due diligence. So when we started in this asset class in property, the first thing we were looking for a money partner. So we started having conversations in our networks going, who wants to make money in that asset class, but doesn't want to be the one renovating and doesn't want to like learn about the skill set or doesn't have the time or anything like that, where it would be worthwhile, because then once you find the deal, you know who to reach out to partner with. I think they are like the first few questions that I would ask myself. Obviously every deal is very different. The last thing that I would leave you with in due diligence is this is probably the one asset class where you do the most research around who are you going to sell to. So who is going to be the back-end market you're selling to? Are they investors? Are they first home buyers? Are they families? Are they singles? Are they like really? And that's the same thing with cars, right? Who's going to buy it, and where do I find that market to buy this off me? And then what are they willing to pay for it? Because then you've got your benchmark. I could talk about due diligence all day, but these are the first few things you can get started with when you are looking at investing in that asset class.
Yeah, I think that last tip, Paulina, was probably the best one, right? About your end user, right, or your end who's going to buy it, because it is a transactional strategy, right? You're buying it at a discounted price, and you are looking to sell it at some point. Yeah, so yeah, I think that's that right there, guys. If there's the one takeaway in this space, that's the one. Start with the person who's going to buy it off you, and work your way back to the deal.
Yeah, absolutely. All right.
Brilliant.
See you in the next episode. Talk to you soon.